Hilchos Mechira, chapter 16, Aleph. Hamoicher zar'inin gina shenatzum shel zar'inim nachal chavede v'leitzamchu. When a person sells seeds of garden vegetables to a friend, when the seed themselves are not eaten, chay b'achriyusun u'masalis adamim shelakach memena shechaskasim le'dezriya. Now, if the seeds do not grow, the seller is responsible to reimburse for the money that he took for him, because we assume that he purchased the seeds to sow them. As long as the seeds do not grow because of the problem with the seed themselves. If, however, the reason they did not grow in the land was because either in Luxor, with hay or the like, he's not chayiv for the chayis. Perhaps the reason that the seeds do not grow is because of the hail. A seller sold seeds that are eaten, so wheat or barley, and the purchaser sold them, and they did not grow. So he's not chayiv for the responsibility. Even if he sold flax seeds, which most the people purchase to sow, also he's not chayiv. Seller is not responsible if they are destroyed while they are sown, since there are some who eat the seeds. And if, however, the purchaser notifies the seller that he's purchasing the seeds, or the kavanah of sowing them, the seller is responsible for them. The fool, it's the same if they purchased it for medicinal purposes or for dyes, etc. To learn from here, whenever a person purchases an item from a friend and informs him that he intends to transfer it to another city to sell it there, and afterwards, after he transferred it there, a blemish which nullifies the sale was discovered, the seller may not tell the purchaser, instead the seller may reimburse the purchaser, and the seller may take the trouble of returning the article to its original place or selling it to the place from which it was transported. Even if this article was lost or stolen after the purchaser notified the seller, it's considered to have been in the seller's domain. When the purchaser did not tell the seller that he was planning to transport the article to another country and transport it, nevertheless, if he then discovered a blemish, the article is considered to be in the domain of the purchaser until he returns it with the blemish to the seller. When a person buys produce and discovers a blemish, afterwards then the article is lost or stolen, the article is considered in the domain of the purchaser until he returns it to the seller. If the produce becomes wormy and is spoiled because of the length of time it has been kept, it is considered to be in the domain of the seller. If the purchaser realized the difficulty and should have notified the seller, but failed to notify the seller, but failed to do so, the produce is considered to be in his domain. When a person sells an ox to a friend and it's discovered that this ox has tendencies to the gore, the seller can excuse him and say, I sold it to you for the purpose of shechting. When do we say this? When the purchaser buys oxen for both shechting and plowing. If the seller knows that the purchaser purchased oxen to plow, transaction is considered to have been conducted under false premises. Person sells an animal to a friend for shechting, the purchaser shechts it, and it's discovered a treifa. If it could be proven that it has been a treifa and was purchased, so the purchaser can return the shechted animal, and the seller must return the money. We can learn from here that when a seller sells an entity and possesses a blemish, and the purchaser makes another blemish before he discovers the first blemish, the purchaser creates the blemish in the process of performing an act that would ordinarily be performed when a shechted animal is a treifa. He's not chayiv. If, however, he deviates from the ordinary practice and makes another blemish before he discovers the first blemish, he should return the article to its owners and reimburse them for the blemish that he made. Zayin, kana bega the Kolel asisi mimenu l'cholok v'achach nedamu machmas akrim. When a person purchases a garment and cuts it with intent to make a cloak from it, because he cut it because of the cut he made, and then he discovered it's the fabric, so then it's blemish, so then mishbeach netel shevach atzvir ben mecher. Geen kolgeet te bezechen. Mecher krijgt lechavide bachop. It is lachas meneer by mum. A person sells landed property to a friend. The purchaser derives benefit from the property and afterwards discovers the blemish. If he desires to return the land to its owners, he must reimburse it for everything. If it was the courtyard and he's dwelling in it, he must pay them the rent. The person sells an article with a blemish that is not recognized, and the article that is sold becomes destroyed because of the blemish. The seller must return the money that he received. So a person sold an ox and did not have molars. Purchaser placed an ox together with the cattle, placed with food before all of them, and they ate. He did not realize that the ox had purchased and was eating them until it died of starvation. In such an instance, the purchaser may return the corpse of the seller, who is required to return the money to him. The seller is a broker who purchases from one person and sells to another without keeping the animal in his possession. And later the memo has a sarsa. So the sarsa, the broker makes the shvusesses and he's butter. Leave the gasher. If you ask me, so she almost be a sarsa. Purchaser had the responsibility of checking the ox he purchased independently and returning it to the broker before he died. Since the purchaser did not do so, he caused him the loss. Geen kolkeets was it. A person checks a firstborn animal, sells it its meat, and then the purchaser discovers that the seller had not shown it to the expert. So when the purchaser ate it, it is not taken into consideration. The seller is required to return the purchaser the money that he paid. So you give a machar lekech basar shel trefel in the chalim. If the purchaser sold the meat that was a trefel to goyim, Aishachlilu kalavim, or he gave it to the kalavim, Yishashiv im tabach al dmei atrefel, Yachshalei ha tabach es hameser. So the purchaser should return he should come to an understanding with the butcher with regards to the money for the trefel. The butcher should then return the remainder to him. So the person sells meat to a friend and it's discovered to be meat of a bechid, or he sells produce that is discovered to be tel, or wine that is discovered to be wine used for avodah zarah. What the purchaser consumes is not taken into consideration. The seller is required to return the money paid to the purchaser. If it's medivri sefer, may appears ki yom machshas bears leis aslamim b'mafam acholam v'arich mecher machshas leichlum. If everyone ate them, then he doesn't return anything. Chol yisur hanav and divri tiv and divri machshas adamim. Whether it's forbidden to the rice with the rabbanon, the seller must return the money it receives. Ain't when din mechvino. Mechira Perek Yud Zayin 17 Aleph Arba Midas B'Meichin. There are 4 states applicable with regards to the seller. A seller sold wheat, assuring the purchaser that it was high quality and it was discovered to be low quality. The purchaser may retract, but not the seller. The purchaser convinced the seller that the wheat was a low quality and it was discovered to be high quality. The seller may retract, but not the purchaser. In the the produce was said to be low quality and it was discovered to be low quality, but not of the absolute lowest quality, or he assured him that it was of a high quality and it was discovered to be a high quality, but not the absolute high quality, we see if there was an unfair gain of a sixth of value. If there was, neither may retract. If there was, neither may retract, but the unfair gain may be returned. If, however, a person claims to be selling red wheat, in fact, it is white. White wheat. In fact, it was red. If it was red, olive wood, and the fact it was wild fig tree, or wild fig wood, and the fact it was an olive tree. Or it was, let's say, yain and nipsa chemetz. It was wine. He sold him wine, but it was found to be vinegar. Or chemetz and nipsa yain. Kolach man yakol azaveki retraction. Because this is not the sale, the type that the seller stated that was selling. When a person sells wine to a friend and the purchaser transfers it to his own container, even if it turns vinegar, the seller is not held responsible. Even if he tells him, I was purchasing it for cooking. If the seller knew that the wine was turning sour, the transaction is considered to have taken place as a mekach tois. If a person sold a friend wine and it remained in the seller's container and turned into vinegar, if the purchaser told the seller, I need this for cooking, and the wine turned sour, the purchaser may return it and say, here is your wine and your containers. I did not buy it to drink, but rather to use it for cooking a little bit of time. If the purchaser did not say, I need this for cooking, he may not return it. For the owner may tell him, why didn't you drink it immediately? You should have left it until it turned sour. When a person sells a barrel of beer to a friend and the barrel belonging to a seller, if the beer becomes vinegar within the first 3 days after the sale, the change is considered to have taken place in the seller's domain. He must return the money he received from it. Onwards, the change is considered to have taken place in the purchaser's domain. A person sells a barrel of wine to a friend who intends to sell it little by little. If half or a third of the wine becomes sour, maybe return to the seller. If, however, the purchaser changes the whole for the spout or the market day came and he was lax, they did not try to sell the wine, it's considered to be the purchaser's domain. A person accepts a barrel of wine from a friend with the intent of transporting it to a particular destination or selling it there. If the price of wine decreased or becomes sour before it reaches the destination, it's considered to be the purchaser's domain. The barrel of wine are his. I'm selling you a fragrant wine. Is responsible for the wine to retain till Shavuos. If he says, I'm selling you aged wine, he must give him previous wines. He mentions vintage wine has to be a third year. So must be in the third year and must attain the flavor. Everything's Zayin. When a person tells a friend, I'm selling you a cellar of wine for cooking, or he tells him, or a cellar of wine, a purchaser accepts the fact that the wine from 10 containers out of 100 will be as of high quality, and he will already begun to sour. If a person sells a If he told the purchaser, I'm selling you a cellar of wine for cooking, or he told him, I'm selling you a barrel of wine, he must provide him with a wine that is entirely of high quality and is fit to be used for cooking. If he told him, I'm selling you the cellar of wine, he should provide him with wine similar to sold at the store. If he says, I am selling you the cellar and did not mention the contained wine, the purchaser may accept it, even if it was vinegar. Last halacha, person tells a friend, I'm selling you a wooden kneading tray, or I'm selling you a beam of olive press. We not give him a piece of wood that is fit to give a kneading tray, from it, or a beam that is fit to be made to a beam of olive press. Instead, he must give him a kneading tray that has already been fashioned, or a beam for an olive press that has already been fashioned, one that any person seeing it will say, this is a kneading tray, or this is a beam of an olive press. Hilchos Mechira Perek Yudches Aleph. Also the Rames as Bnei Adam b'mikoch u'mimimkor eligne v'staitum. It's forbidden to deceive people with regards to a business deal or to steal from them. The Isser applies equally to Yidden and to Goyim. If a seller knows that the article he is selling has a blemish, he has to notify the purchaser. Also, it's forbidden to steal a person with false flattery. Base. One may not improve the appearance of a man being sold as a servant, nor of an animal, nor of old utensils, by making them appear as new. One may, however, improve the appearance of new utensils by polishing them, ironing them, and beautifying them as much as necessary. One may not feed a man water in which bran was cooked, which causes his body to swell, making his face appear larger. One may not point one's face with like rouge or the like. One may not inflate intestines that are being sold in the butchery, nor may one soak them meat in water. Are all forbidden. One may not sell a goy meat from an animal that was not slaughtered correctly, that was ritually slaughtered, although religiously there's no difference to him whether it was shechter or not. It's permitted to remove the husks from kernels of grain or beans, provided one does not do so on top of the grain sack. For doing so causes a false impression that the entire quantity has been husked. It's permitted for a merchant to distribute roasted seeds and nuts to children and maidservants so that they will frequent his establishment. A merchant may discount an ordinary market price of an item to increase his volume customers. The other merchants in the marketplace may not prevent him from doing so, nor is this considered to be deceiving customer. One may not mix two batches of the same species of produce together. And this applies when both batches are freshly harvested. Even it's forbidden to mix produce harvested previously with freshly harvested produce. This applies when previously harvested produce is more expensive than the freshly harvested, because the guy wants the old one. An exception was made with regards to wine, as it is permitted to mix stronger wine with lighter wine during the time the wine is fermenting alone, because one improves the flavor of the other. The flavor of the wine added is distinct, it's permitted to mix them at the same time. Whenever the entity is distinct, its presence can be detected by a purchaser, therefore mixing is permitted. Water may not mix together with wine. When water has been mixed with a person's wine, you should not sell it in the store unless he notifies the customer. You should not sell it to a merchant even if he notifies him, unless the merchant deceive others. In the place where it's customary to add water to wine, one may do so, which is provided that one does at the time of the wine fermenting. A merchant may take from 5 wine vats and store the mixture in one tank. We may take from 5 granaries and store the mixture in one warehouse. Actually, he's carbon Arav, as long as he does not intend to mix the produce. Yes, also the Arav Shmarim bin Biyayim and Mishem Nafida Kosher is forbidden to mix dregs, either wine or oil. Fil Shmarim Shal MS, Shmar Shayim also. We now even mixed the dregs produced yesterday with dregs produced today. If, however, one pours wine from one container to another, one may add the dregs to the wine. Test. When a person sells refined oil to a friend, the purchaser refuses to accept any dregs at all. He sells him oil without mentioning any descriptive term, the purchaser is willing to accept the 1.5 load. For every 100 load will be dregs. And he accepts the fact that he remembers of the oil with the dregs. This will be the murky with dregs being suspended in the oil, in addition to the quantity of dregs that is standard in the locale. This when he pays the money in tissue when oil is cloudy. Oil is cloudy, receives the oil in this, and according to the measure of tishrei, which is larger because of the unrefined oil above. If, however, the purchaser takes the measure given in Nisan, which is smaller because the oil has already become clear, he accepts only the measure of dregs mentioned in the previous halacha. Yud Aleph. Person sells wheat to a friend, the purchaser accepts that he will receive 1/4 of kav of legumes for every saw. When he purchases barley, accepts that he will receive 1/4 of kav dried out kernels for every saw. When he purchases lentils, he accepts that he will receive 1/4 of kav of pebbles for every saw. When he purchases figs, he accepts that he will receive 10 warm once for 100. If a person sells any other type of produce to a friend, the purchaser accepts that he will receive 1/4 of kav of dirty produce for every saw. If the amount of lower quality produce exceeds these measures, the seller must sift the entire batch and give the purchaser sifted and clean produce that he has no undesirable qualities. As we always go, everything goes based on the established custom. There are places where it's customary for all produce to be sold when it has been cleaned and sifted. Removing all the foreign bodies and from the wines and the oils, to be clear, without selling any dregs at all. Not selling the shmanim at all. There are other places where produce is sold even where there are half dregs, where there's half the amount of sand, straw, or other substance in the produce. The figure live for a bader, Sidir, Batif Gurner, Shalchabir, Nisla, Ethan Mashir, Sidir Shabir. Therefore, in such locale, if a person takes a stone from a grain heap, must reimburse the owner as if the stone he took were wheat. If one would say, let him return the stone, this is forbidden, for it's forbidden to mix even the slightest amount of the foreign substance into produce. When a person sells barrels in the Sharon in a place where there is no established custom, the purchaser accepts that out of 100 barrels, he will receive 10 that are inferior qualities. Even these must, however, be attractive and fixed with pitch.